So everyone's talking about AI taking over our jobs, but that's not the real fight ahead. The next big war won't be over oil or territory or even data.
The real battle will be over water. Canada's stepping into a new kind of arms race, not for weapons, but for cooling data and keeping the taps on.
We're calling it what it is, the upcoming water wars. And unless we draw some boundaries now, we're going to lose control of the one thing that we can't live without.
Right now, Canada's rolling out the red carpet for big tech, building billion-dollar data centers that need lakes worth of water just to keep the servers cool.
And the problem is, AI is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. It's the future, it's innovation, and it's jobs.
Yeah, but here's what no one mentions. That future runs on your hydro bill and your drinking water.
Canada's racing to become an AI powerhouse, but big tech isn't just after data. They're after our power grid and our water supply.
And if we don't set some limits, we'll end up footing the bill while they take all the credit.
Right now, Canada's federal government, through Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada, has earmarked $700 million for what it calls the Sovereign AI Compute Strategy.
The idea sounds smart. Bring AI infrastructure home instead of renting it from the US or China.
And you know what? That part makes sense. We need compute power to compete. But here's the catch. We're courting Microsoft, Amazon, and Google like VIP guests at an all-inclusive resort. Come build your billion-dollar data centers and hyperscale playgrounds here. We've got cheap hydro, cool weather, and polite regulators.
And they're saying, thanks, Canada. We'll take it from here.
In Etobicoke, Ontario, Microsoft's building a facility the size of a Costco stacked on a hockey rink. It's cleared to use up to 40 liters of water per second for cooling. That's over 1 billion liters a year.
To put that into perspective, that's 500 Olympic swimming pools to cool computers. Forget AI, this thing could cool the Olympics and still have enough left over for Niagara Falls.
So, who's actually letting this happen? Who gets to say yes?
Well, it's kind of a three-way handshake. You have Ottawa signing the checks, that's federal. Then you have provinces handling the power side, provincial. In Ontario, that's the IESO. They decide if the grid can even handle another mega project.
And the cities? Well, they're the ones handing out the building permits and water hookups. So basically, everybody's in charge, which means nobody's really in charge.
Exactly. And when something goes wrong, every level of government points at each other, while the pumps, well, they just keep on running.
And that's how billion-dollar projects quietly sail through with almost no public hearing. Just a ribbon cutting when it's already too late to turn the taps off.
So here's the thing. Dave said earlier, AI isn't going anywhere, and we need AI infrastructure. We need computing capacity in country if Canada is going to keep up with the rest of the world.
Yeah, Canadian researchers, hospitals, and startups can't compete globally if all the computing happens in California or Shenzhen.
Otherwise, we end up paying Silicon Valley rent forever.
So yes, AI data centers are needed, but needed doesn't mean no rules.
If they drain our rivers and overload our grid, what are we even competing for?
Because once the water's gone, well, good luck coding your way out of that one.
So here's the real math. The International Energy Agency says data center power demand will double by 2030. It's about the same size as the entire country of Japan.
And globally, they're already using over 140 billion liters of water a year just for cooling. That's the entire population of Canada showering every day for months straight, just so your chatbot doesn't overheat.
And Big Tech's favorite line? Don't worry, we're efficient now. Every company swears they're green. Microsoft said it in the Netherlands, then they used 4 times more water than they promised.
So unless we get real-time meters and audits, those sustainability pledges, they are just PR hydration.
Hey, listen, we are not anti-tech. We love tech. We use it every day. But Canada needs to act like it owns the house before handing over the keys.
Because right now, we're letting billion-dollar guests move in, plug into our power, tap our water, and promise to be good tenants.
That won't happen.
No.
That problem is there's no lease agreement. We have no clear rules, and every level of government is doing its own thing. Federal money here, provincial permits there, city hookups over there, and nobody's keeping track of the total tab.
The US and Europe are already tightening their standards. They're demanding transparency, water meters, and proof that these projects actually are helping communities.
Meanwhile, in Canada, we're still rolling out the welcome mat like it's 1999.
So maybe the real question here isn't how to fix it, it's who's even paying attention.
Because this isn't just about zoning bylaws or water meters anymore. It's about who actually controls the essentials that keep a country running.
Listen, this isn't just an environmental issue, it's a sovereignty issue.
Yeah, if foreign companies control your computing power, your energy supply, and your water, you are not a leader. You're a landlord who forgot you own the building.
Real sovereignty means Canada controls its own infrastructure and keeps the lights on and taps on for Canadians first.
We can be a global AI hub without giving away the store, but only if we build smarter than everyone else.
Every leader that leaves this country under the radar sets a precedent. And once water becomes a trade item, well, then it's no longer a resource. It's a right someone else thinks that they own.
You've heard of energy independence? Well, now get ready for water dependence.
We've said it before in our sovereignty episodes. Water is the next oil. The only difference? You can't live without water. If AI campuses and foreign policy both reach for the same tap, communities lose twice.
So here's the line that should be in the sand. Well, or in the shoreline. If anyone wants access to Canadian water, whether it's for servers, farms, or pipelines, the answer should start with our laws, our treaties, and our consent. No consent, no flow.
Because once you normalize exporting our water to fix someone else's drought, the water wars aren't ahead of you, they've already started.
And speaking of that, let's zoom out a bit. This isn't just big tech. There's a bigger player eyeing Canada's tap.
Trump has outright threatened our water. He talked about turning on a giant faucet to send water south, pointing at Canadian rivers and saying basically, why can't we just let it flow?
Yeah, Canada sits on a massive share of the world's fresh surface water. In fact, we're sitting on 1/5 of the world's fresh water. But most of it doesn't refill. It's not a magic tap, and once you drain it, that's it. It's a very fragile, irreplaceable system.
Canadian lakes and glaciers are melting faster than we can measure them.
And the writing's on the wall. The U.S. is bone dry in places. Droughts are hammering the West Coast, aquifers are drying up, and firefighting crews from California to Texas are begging for new sources. When Trump says Canada as the 51st state, don't just hear bluster, hear policy and pressure for our bulk water and shared infrastructure. Canada's experts are saying, don't dismiss it.
Trump's made comments about taking control of our shared waterways like the Great Lakes. Those aren't just lakes. They're the world's largest freshwater system, and they straddle our border like a savings account you share with a neighbor who keeps borrowing your hose.
And on the West Coast, the Columbia River Treaty, the rulebook for cross-border water, power, and flood control, well, it has hit turbulence. Talks have stalled again.
The treaty was supposed to be about flood control and hydropower, not a blank check for the U.S. to treat Canadian water like an export pipeline.
Yeah, Washington's been dragging its feet on this for years because, surprise, they don't want to pay a fair compensation for what's basically a continental battery sitting north of the border.
And while everyone's distracted about oil pipelines, the real quiet handover is happening through water. The Great Lakes alone hold 20% of the world's fresh water. You think drought-stricken states like Arizona and Nevada aren't eyeing that like a lifeline?
They already are. This isn't science fiction anymore. It's policy brainstorming.
And when Trump talks about making Canada the 51st state, that's not about friendship. It's about resources, fresh water, critical minerals, and Arctic access, which we've talked about in other videos that we've linked below.
So yeah, when we talk about the water wars, it's not a metaphor. It's the next fight for Canada's future.
We know the world's been fighting over oil for a century, but this century, the fight's going to be about water.
And Canada can't afford to sleepwalk through it because sovereignty isn't just about borders, it's about who controls the flow.
And once you lose control of that, you lose everything.
So, is it worth it? AI is here to stay, but not at any price.
We can compete without getting cleaned out. All we have to do is put Canadians first in our own country.
So what do you think? Should cities have to prove an AI data center helps the community before it breaks ground? Let us know in the comments below and tell us where Canada should green light or red light all of those projects.
Because water is life. Data is just data.
So stay informed and keep an eye on this story because it is not being talked about enough. Let's keep Canada's water in Canadian hands.
And if you made it this far, you're officially part of the conversation. So hit that like button, subscribe, and join our A-team for members-only behind-the-scenes chats and early drops.
And don't forget, we post every day, and the full deep dives live on our Substack at Unfiltered North.
And if you want to see how all this connects, watch our video, Trump's 51st State Dream, Canada Fights Back. It's right here on the channel, and it lays out exactly why water, trade, and sovereignty all collide.
You can check the links below for everything we mentioned. So thanks for watching, everyone. Stay informed and elbows up.
Boop.
See you tomorrow.